Theme and app development have always been two different things on Shopify. If you trace back to Shopify's founding year, the platform has always offered a selection of third-party developed themes, but it wasn't until 2010 when Shopify launched the theme store that the platform invited third-party designers to submit their own Shopify theme designs for consideration. 10 months previous to the announcement of the new theme store, Shopify launched the API platform and App Store, announcing that online merchants can now develop and sell their own application. Themes are, of course, this section of your Shopify site where you'll find different versions of your online storefront, built with Liquid, HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Customizable through the online store editor and easily swapped into production by simply clicking the Publish button. Apps, on the other hand, are located here and each have their own custom interface, extending the Shopify admin and allowing us to create infinite possibilities on Shopify. While there's nowhere for us to go in and edit the code directly here, we know that these apps take advantage of Shopify's admin API in order to programmatically affect the back end of our Shopify store and oftentimes the front end too. But if apps and themes can both affect the front end, how do we know for sure which features exist on which platform? Well, in today's video, I'm going to take a long overdue look at Shopify Theme App Extensions, and together we'll learn how Shopify apps interact with themes since Online Store 2.0. So I mentioned that Shopify apps can programmatically affect the back end of our Shopify store, but oftentimes the front end as well. So how does this happen? Well, before Theme App Extensions, this was how it worked. As it says here, without Theme App Extensions, apps use the Asset API, which gives them full read-write access to theme files. They then proceed to add and modify any number of files to get their app integrated into the theme. Of course, the Assets folder is not where we store HTML and Liquid code. So to actually get an element to appear within the theme code, apps used to ask merchants to copy and paste HTML code into the store as an additional step after installing the app, as you can see here. This is obviously problematic because while the app is clearly visible in the apps section of the store, the HTML code that we insert in the theme is not. And therefore, even if a developer is to install it into a theme, that developer would need to then make sure that the code snippet is lost in between themes, and anyone new to the project would need to somehow know what snippets are required and then be able to identify and locate them in the theme. Introducing Theme App Extensions. Now, obviously, I'm a little bit late to the party here covering this topic almost 2 years after it was initially released, but as a theme developer, it didn't really concern me until I was forced to solve an issue regarding an app on a client's website. Working with Shopify since 2019, I was used to doing the whole insert the HTML code snippet into the theme thing, and I wasn't too concerned with this new feature when it came out. But then when this issue came up, I realized that the front-end app functionality can be easily removed without needing to remove the app completely just via the theme editor. I'm talking about app blocks and app embed blocks. Now, with Theme App Extensions, which covers both of these, that code that would have been injected onto the theme is now stored within the app itself, and we can bring it in, as Tulin explains here, as an app block or an app embed block. But rather than continue to flood you with all this theoretical talk, let's actually create one of these apps ourselves and see how it works. All right, usually I start the videos in my development store, which I do have here with test data, Chris Testing Shop with test data. So yes, I have some demo products in here, and yes, you're going to need a development store in order to follow this tutorial or do what I'm about to show you. But we're also going to need a partners account, and if you've created the development store, you obviously have a partners account. And inside our partners account, you can see we've got the menu item to take us to our list of stores, but we've also got apps here. And this is where our app is not really hosted, but it's where our app will be managed within Shopify, okay, in our partners account. And from here, we can install it on different stores, all right? We also need, and this is the third thing we're going to need in order to follow along today and complete this demonstration, is Shopify CLI. So as you can see, I've scrolled down to the requirements here. You're going to need Node 16 or higher. You're going to need npm yarn or pnpm. This should be pretty standard, having a Git version of 2.28 or higher. And you need to use Chrome or Firefox. I believe this doesn't work on Safari. I always use Chrome. I recommend Chrome, but you have Firefox there as an option as well. I guess just don't try this on Safari. I've never tried this on Safari, but by the looks of things, it probably doesn't work. All right, so obviously you're going to need your terminal. I got mine right here. And let me just check my versions of everything. So I'm going to go node v to check my version. And as you can see, I'm running different versions on my computer here using Node Version Manager. I'm only running 12 at the moment, which is not good enough. So I'm going to run nvm use, let's make this a bit bigger for you guys to see, nvm use 16. And now if I type node v, you'll see we're on 16.2. And then if I type in npm-v, you'll see that I do have npm installed, which is what I'm going to be using today. And finally, to check our Shopify CLI version, I'm going to type in Shopify version. And if you don't have Shopify CLI installed, this will come back with an error, but here you can see it comes back with the version number. So this is the most recent, or pretty close to the most recent version number at the time of recording. So if you're in doubt about whether you have the latest version of CLI, just upgrade to be safe. All right, so I'm going to hit clear to clear out those commands, and let's get started creating our app. So here in the documentation, you can see sort of some of the steps. I'm going to copy this right here to create an app. Okay, so I'm going to go into here, run npm init at shopify/app at latest, and it's going to say that it needs to install other packages as dependencies. Yep, that's totally cool. So I'll hit yes on that. I'll fast forward through the installation of that. All right, so now it's going to ask me what my app project name is going to be. I'm just going to call this Theme App Extensions Test. Which template would you like to use? Obviously, if you have a preferred programming language, you can choose PHP or Ruby as alternatives, but Node is the standard choice. That's going to create a Node environment, which we can write our app in JavaScript, which is what I'm most comfortable with and what I recommend for you guys. So just need to give it a little bit of extra time to load. I'll fast forward through this again. All right, now you can see our app has been successfully created. And we can actually cd into Theme App Extensions Test here, or we can run npm run generate extension to generate an extension. And then if we want to run our app in development mode, we can run this. So there you go, very helpful instructions there. As this video is all about creating a theme app extension, I'm going to run that second command. So npm run generate extension. I'll hit enter on that. And I think I've missed a step here. I needed to first run cd theme app extension test. Sorry about that. So I need to first cd into that directory. Looks like I didn't copy that correctly. Let me do that again. Copy that. All right, so now I'm inside that directory. I should now be able to run npm run generate extension. So that's going to start now. It's going to ask me a few questions. Number one, it's going to ask if I want to create this as a new app on Shopify. Remember when I went into my partner's account before and you saw this area for apps? That's what it's asking here. It's asking, do we want to create a new app listing in our partner's account? As this is a completely new app, the answer is yes. We are going to hit yes on that. And now we're going to give it its name that will show up in our partner account. So I'm going to call this Theme App Extension Test, hit enter. Obviously, if you were to be creating a production level app, you would name it whatever you wanted to name it. And here you can see a list of options. You've got Checkout UI, which is pretty new and cutting edge at the moment. So I might do a video on that later. But if we go up, you can see that we can also create a theme app extension. So I'm going to select number 13 and I'll hit enter on that. And then this extension name is just going to be, I believe, the folder name of the theme app extension. So I'm going to call this theme, or should I call it app? theme extension. It really doesn't matter. It's just going to create the folder in our app with that name. So I'll hit enter on that. And there we go. We have created our extension in extensions app theme extension. Okay. Now we can run it by running npm run dev. But before we do that, I want to actually first have a look at the code. So of course, as always, I'm going to use Visual Studio Code for this, and I'm going to use Command O to open up a file or folder. And I'm going to go into my desktop folder here, and inside the code folder, I can find Theme App Extensions Test. Yeah, that is the app folder. So I'll open that one up, and let's have a look at the code here. Yes, I trust the authors. Let me close down that, and then I'll zoom in a bit here so you guys can see more clearly. And here you can see there is our extensions folder here, and we've only got one extension, which is our app theme extension. We've got our package.json file here, which has all of our scripts. So npm run dev, npm run build, npm run generate, which you saw before, generated our extension, deploy, all that good stuff, right? So there's a few parts of it which I won't go into depth here, but obviously we've got node modules and we've got this web folder. So this is what the app is essentially. So this is the main part of your app. This is like the interface of it within your Shopify admin. So once we install this, you'll start to see some of this code coming through. But in this video, what we're mainly concerned with is how this app theme extension is structured and how it actually affects your theme. So as you can see inside here, there's a few familiar names or terms here. So we've got an assets folder here, and we've got an image. So kind of like a theme, right? Pretty similar. In here, we've got blocks. And if I go in here, I can find liquid code. Pretty interesting, huh? If I go into locales, I've got a locales JSON file, just like I would have in a theme. And in snippets, just like I would have in a theme, I've got a snippet. So this is basically just like a theme. So if I expand this out, it's actually taken some of the files that we would previously have to embed in our theme, and we've put them in this extensions folder, right? Now, there are a few differences. If we go into star rating, I'll explain this in a bit, but this schema here has some new stuff, or has some different stuff to a standard section schema in Shopify. I'll get into that in just a little bit. And then, of course, you've got your configuration here that's stored in your TOML. Okay, so we'll dive back into the code in just a second, but I want to do what it asked me to do before, which was to run that command in our terminal. I'm going to hit Control backtick to open up a terminal, and let's run the terminal from within our project within Visual Studio Code. So here I'm going to run npm run dev. All right, what have we got here? Okay, if you get weird errors like this, this is usually related to Node. So if I type in node v, and you see I'm on 12 in this sort of instance of the terminal. So I'm going to use nvm to change my Node version to 16. It might sound a bit weird that we'd have different Node versions on the same computer and switch between them, but sometimes you actually do, as a developer, need to go back to an earlier Node version, which is annoying sometimes, but it is necessary. So that's why. So if I run npm run dev now, it should work. So I'll expand this out so you can see everything that's happening. All right, and if we haven't already, we need to log into our Shopify Partners account through the CLI. So I'm just going to hit any key like it's asking me to do here. Then I'm going to select the account that's associated with my partner account. And as it says here, I've successfully logged into the CLI. I can now close this tab and return to my terminal. This is consistent with the theme commands. So the same way we would do Shopify CLI for themes, authenticating into our partners account, we do the same thing here for an app. Okay, and now it's asking again if I want to create this as a new app on Shopify. I don't know exactly why it's asking me that, because it already asked me that in the past, but we can go into here, refresh, and see if our app is actually in here. No, it isn't, which makes sense. We haven't actually run the app yet. So I'll go back into Visual Studio Code and I'll hit yes, create it as a new app, giving it the name of Theme App extension. I'm not sure if that was the same one we used before. I'll hit enter on that. And now I can choose which store that I would like to view this project. I'm going to choose Chris Testing Shop 3 with test data, hit enter on that. And now you can see, let's have a look. All right, a lot of stuff happening here, but as you can see, we've got our preview URL here, which we can access just by hitting the key P here. That'll open it up in a new tab, and that'll give us our install link so we can add our theme app extension to our store by just hitting this green button right here. All right, so after a few seconds, you'll see that we now have theme app extension in our list of apps over here. And as you can see, we've got this user interface right here within our app. Now, where does this all come from? I said I was going to go back to the code at a certain point, and this is the point where I'm going to do so. I'm going to copy that text right now. And let's close down this terminal just to down here. And then I'm going to search my project for where I can find nice work on building a Shopify app. And you can see here it's in the web front-end pages folder. I'll click into that. Let's go back into our directory here, and you can see here that we have that page in the form of JSX, which is basically how we write React apps. For instance, if I wanted to change this, I could change this to hello world. If I hit save on that, it's going to auto refresh. And if I head back to our browser here, you can see that text auto update. Now, because this tutorial is about theme app extensions and not really about full-on app development, I want to draw your attention to the part in the code, not here in the web folder, which handles what we see in that app section of our store, but here in our app theme extension folder, all these different parts, right? So we've got our extension here. We installed it before, and we've got some demo code out of the box. We can, of course, go in here and modify it as much as we want, but let's run with the demo code for now. And because we've got this theme app extension code here, we've got it in our project. Now all we have to do in order to be able to use it in our customizer and put it into an app block, we just need to go back to our partners account right over here. Let's refresh and find hopefully that newly created app in our list of apps here. Yep, theme app extension. If I click on that, you can see just before I clicked on it, there was one install on it, which is the store that we just installed it onto, Chris Testing Shop 3. Actually, we've got over here. I'll just close that down. Don't need this anymore. Let's go over to our partners account, click on the theme app extension app here, and then I'm going to go into extensions. As you can see here, we've got our extension. I'm going to click on that one, and we're on a working draft at the moment. I'm just going to hit create version, and we'll call this a minor version. And now you can see we've got our 0.1.0 version created. So I'll just hit publish on that. And now, as it says here, it is live. Okay. All right. So now that that's done, we can head back to our store. And if we're using Dawn, the schemas in Dawn by default have app blocks enabled. But if we don't have that, I'll show you how to do that as well. So let's head into our customizer right here. And let's first create a standard app block. I think because I'm in an incognito browser, that's why it doesn't like it. All right, one sec. I'll just swap over to a non-incognito browser. All right, so now that I'm off incognito, I should be able to access my store now. There we go. Inside the customizer, I'm going to go over to the product page. The default product template is fine. And here you can see the standard Dawn product page template with the main product section, which has all the little blocks here that we can rearrange, and a related products section below. I can delete this section to make it easier. I'm just going to leave it in there. And here under add section, what I can do is I can add an apps section, and this apps section can hold our app blocks. So I'll click on add section. And if we've done everything correct up until this point, underneath our theme sections, if we scroll down to apps, we can click on this to add in that block underneath this apps section, right? So it can be within this container section of apps, or what we can do as well, because as you can see here, this is a star rating. So it's kind of like a product reviews type system. It's the default theme app extension that comes when we generate the extension. What I'm going to do is I'm going to remove that section, and instead up in our main product section, I'm going to click add block, and I can actually add that block, that star rating block in here. So I can move it into a place that makes a bit more sense. So scrolling up here, you can see we've got our ratings, which is always going to be 0, no stars, until we actually add the data for that. So I'm going to hit save on that, and let's have a look at the code and compare it to what we've got in our customizer. Okay, so as we saw before, this is all quite similar to Shopify Liquid. This is all kind of mirroring Shopify themes, but here you can see this folder that we don't see in Shopify themes, and that's for our app blocks. So as you can see, this app block here in our schema is called star rating, and that's what came through on the front end when we added it either in its own apps section or here under product information. So the code for this right here lives right here under blocks. Now, even though this might look a little bit like a section with its schema and Shopify Liquid up here, there are a few differences, most notably this right here, which determines the target of the app block. So we can have a theme app block like we do currently, or we can have a theme app embed, which I'll show you in just a second. For a theme app block, it's going to be stored inside a section. So the target is going to be set to section here. Okay, so that matches what we have here on our front end. It's inside a section. That's what the target field means. Because this is a block and not a section, you'll notice that we reference all the settings on this schema through the block object up here. So just like working with sections in Shopify themes, we can access the data by going into dot settings and then accessing the values of the different properties via its ID field. And as you can see here, the first setting is a actual product object, and we're grabbing some meta field data off that product object, which actually doesn't exist yet. So we're going to create that in this video as well. But here you can see the second setting is color right here, which it's interesting. We've got the English Australian spelling here and the American spelling here. I don't know, maybe it's detected my language and used the other spelling. So a bit confusing maybe to the American viewers watching this. But here you can see we've got our color setting right here, and we're putting that directly into the style attribute of this span to change the color of the stars. And just like Shopify themes, we're rendering a snippet held in this folder right here, which just generates the stars, right? It also makes reference to this translation, which is stored right here in your translations file. And then this thumbs up button or thumbs up image, I'm not sure where that's used, but we're going to use that to demonstrate a point later in this video. All right, so let's head back to this. This is the actual block code right here. And the other thing I want you to notice right here is this is all pretty standard. You'll see this in any Shopify section, but what you won't see is autofill true. Okay, so if I head back to the settings for our block here, so if I click into it and look in the block settings, you'll see that we can set the color here, right? And if I hit black on that and hit save, it should change the color. But I can also select a product object, which is going to show the rating for. Now, interestingly enough, I'm not sure why this isn't working, but the autofill property that I just showed you, what that does is it autofills the product that we're currently looking at. But in this case, it hasn't done so. So maybe I'll click over here to do dynamic source, and then I'll click product to use dynamic linking instead. But yeah, using that autofill attribute here, it should have autofilled the product there by itself. Not sure why it didn't do that in that instance, but with dynamic linking, we can simply just click on these to connect dynamic source. So I'll hit save on that, and it'll use the product object from the current page now. All right, heading back into the code, I see here that you've got the thumbs up. That's if the average rating is more than 4. Okay, so that's where the thumbs up asset comes. And as you can see here, we can use the same asset filters that we use in Shopify themes right here to access assets in this assets folder. So hopefully you're starting to get the picture now that we're moving these files that would typically live in the theme and we're putting them in the actual app code itself. And that's a bit cleaner because we can simply remove this app block from our storefront just using the customizer, and that code and all of its assets, locales, and snippets will be removed as well. It's a cleaner solution, but it's kind of weird that we've got liquid inside of an app rather than on a theme. Now I mentioned up here, we've got this meta field here, which hasn't actually been created yet. If we were to build out this app, we could program the app to create this meta field. But for us, we're just demonstrating app extensions. So what I'm going to do is just create that meta field within our store. So I'm going to go back to here. We talked about meta fields in the video before the last one. So check out that one if you need to know more about meta fields. I'm going to go into custom data, go into products here, and you can see the creators meta field that we created in the last video. And now let's create a definition that matches exactly with the namespace and key of what's in our code. So metafields.demo.average rating. Okay, so let me grab that. Head back over here. Instead of the custom namespace, we'll use demo to match exactly. And I'll just call this product rating. We'll give it a type of integer, single value. The star rating system starts at 1, ends at 5. So let's put that in as our validations. All right, so I'll put that in there. Now if we go to our product page, what was the product we were looking at beforehand? I'll open up the customizer in a separate tab here. Head to products, default product, and it was showing the multi-location snowboard. So let me look this one up. The multi-location snowboard right here. If we scroll down, we should be able to see that meta field now, product rating, and in here I can give it a rating between 1 to 5. I'm going to put in 4. All right, and then if we open up this page, no, it's actually opened it in the admin. I'll hit preview, one extra step to get it on the front end. You can see here that we've now got 4 stars coming through, and that's where our thumbs up comes up saying recommended product. If we look inside the code, you can see that coming through here. If average rating is equal to or greater than 4, then show that thumbs up with the text coming through this translation. So hopefully you guys understand translations. Essentially, we can use this path here to look up. So if I go over here, and I'm gonna have to click on it first, and then click here to split right. Let's have a look at them, have them both here, and then split that one right. Close that. Here you can see if we go into ratings, home, which is the next step, and recommendation text, that's where it comes through, okay? So for those of you who needed a quick refresher on translations. All right, so that's pretty much a normal app block that goes into a section, but we also have theme app embed blocks. What are they? Let's demonstrate that now. All right, for this next and final part of the video, I'm going to start you guys off here at the Theme App Extensions framework page of the official Shopify documentation. And as you can see here, the file structure that we just discussed, all the information is here about how to structure your theme app extension. It talks about app blocks. As you can see here, it gives you examples, shows you where this goes in your theme. Pretty good documentation right here. But I want to draw your attention to this particular part, which is the app embed blocks. What separates this type of block from the standard app block is that they either don't have a UI component, or that they do, but they're designed to float or overlay over existing elements. As you can see here, we create these sort of app blocks by setting the target in the schema to head or body. Maybe it's just a bit of JavaScript or some CSS. We can add it to the head, or we can add it to the body. We can turn off these app embeds through our customizer via theme settings inside app embeds, which I will show you a little later. All right, so if we scroll down here, you can see this sample code right here. Right here, you can see this will float something in the bottom right corner. So I'm going to grab this app embed block code, and then I'm going to go back into my customizer here, and inside blocks, let's just call this floating image.liquid, and I'll paste in that code. Now, as you can see here, it's making reference to a kitten.jpg file that's in our assets folder that doesn't currently exist. So let me just change this to thumbs up instead, just to keep this simple and use existing assets that already exist in our app extension already. All right, we can give this settings just like we did for the other block, but here you'll notice in the target, we're setting this to body. So this is just going to inject it somewhere in the body. So this is for floating elements or JavaScript or stuff that doesn't go into a particular spot inside the existing HTML structure, unless of course it is floating, which is what we're demonstrating right now. All right, so if I save on that, let's see if we can now view that in our app. So I'll refresh the customizer. We might actually need to publish a new version of the app, but let's just check this first. If we go into app embeds, yeah, so you can see here the space where we usually look at our app embeds, just under theme settings actually, not in theme settings, but just under it. But in order to see it, we're going to have to go back to our partners account here and create a new version. It's a new minor version. We've added a new app block, and we can publish that new version like such. Okay. Then if I go over here and I refresh, hopefully we'll be able to see this now in our customizer. And lo and behold, you'll see we've got our app embed here. Doesn't have any customizable settings because we haven't set any. And if I toggle this on and hit save, now if we scroll up and down the page, let's open this up. Actually, that's going to open up the whole theme. I want to view this particular snowboard, so I'm going to click that to view this particular product page. That's going to take us to the admin page, unfortunately, but then we can just click preview and that'll show us here. All right, so I'm going to hide this bar. And as you can see, we've got this thumbs up floating on the bottom right. Okay. If I right click and inspect that, sorry, that's coming off screen, but I just right clicked on it and then clicked inspect. You can see here that we've got code for a Shopify app block floating inside our body, in between our body tags. If we dive deeper into here, you can see the exact code that we wrote here in our liquid, making reference to that thumbs up and utilizing these styles. We could also add settings here. And if at any point we don't want this showing up on our front end alongside our app, we can actually, let's go back over here. Instead of updating it here, we're going to go over to app embeds and we can just toggle that off. I'll hit save on that. And now you can see that that's gone. So why is this important? Why am I showing you this? Well, this is important even if you're not an app developer. If you're more of a theme developer like me, this is important because you need to know how these apps are interacting with your theme. This whole app embed thing, for instance, flew under the radar with me until I saw this in my theme and had to switch some off and on. And I was like, how does this actually work? And that's what motivated me to dive deeper into this. And it's important, especially for those of us who haven't been used to this in the past. We've been used to going into our theme code and manually installing that app code. It's important for us to note now that that code has now been moved, and the benefit of that code being moved into our app code right here in these different block files is that we don't have to look for them within our theme. We don't have to try and remove these app files when we want to uninstall the app. We can actually just go in here and click remove block, or turn off the app embed, depending on what type of theme extension it is. And perhaps more importantly, we can toggle it on and off with ease, add customization settings. As you can see here, this app embed doesn't have any customization settings, but you can see here the star rating does. We can actually go into our admin and change stuff like this, which gives us obviously powerful functionality that previous to app blocks wasn't available to us, but something that we have been used to with Shopify sections for a long time. There's only two downsides I see to having this theme app extension code inside the app itself. And that is, number one, we can't actually edit it as theme developers. So if we're using a third-party app, the code is going to be hosted on the app developer's own servers. Which brings me to point number two. As a downside is this code, because it's not hosted on Shopify, needs to be hosted somewhere. Now, if you're not familiar with app development, you need to be able to host the app code somewhere. You might be mistaken for thinking that we're hosting this on Shopify, but we're actually creating a development server right here and tunneling it to our app in the partner's account. Let me show you that right now. Hopefully this isn't too complex for you guys, but if we go into app setup in our app, you'll see here that these are just tunneling addresses. And what I mean by that is we're still running the server on our local computer, which isn't sustainable for production. And what I mean by that is if I just went here and I hit Q to quit the whole running of this app, and then we went back over to here and we went back to our store right here, you can see we've got ratings there. Let's say we haven't removed it from our store yet. Let's refresh, or perhaps refresh over here. The good news, at least, is that the theme app extension code stays on your store. But if we were to go over to the app page itself, so if I go into apps, theme app extension, you can see that this now is broken. So that's good. At least the theme app extensions themselves still get saved on the store. But if we're not running our local development server, then we're not going to be able to get this. So if you actually are running an app where you want a user interface here, then you're going to have to host that app code somewhere. But obviously as theme developers, we don't have to worry about that. As theme developers, the downside is that we don't actually have access to this code. So whatever customization options the app developer gives us here is what we're limited to. So hopefully the app developer has made it very customizable for us. Otherwise, we're limited in terms of theme developers without access to this app code in what we can do to affect these widgets. All right, guys, that's it for today's video. If you want to learn more about Shopify development, check out the resources in the description box below, and I'll see you on the next video.